You see them everywhere, right? On pretty much any street in America. That constant stream of delivery vans from Amazon, UPS, you name it. We've all gotten completely used to this idea that we can get anything we want dropped right at our door in a day or two. But have you ever wondered what it's actually like for the people behind the wheel making all that happen? Well, let's get into it.
I mean, look, on the surface, it's the same exact job. Get a package from point A to point B. But for the drivers inside these two vans, their reality, we're talking pay, benefits, career opportunities, the whole deal. It couldn't be more different. And the reason why comes down to two completely opposite business models.
And to really get this, we have to start with Amazon. Because what they did wasn't just change how we all shop, they completely re-engineered the entire delivery industry from the ground up.
What's so wild about this chart is just the sheer speed of it all. Just look at that light blue line. In less than 10 years, Amazon went from being barely a blip on the radar to an absolute powerhouse, right up there with the giants who've been doing this for a century. They totally changed the game.
And the scale we're talking about is, well, it's hard to even wrap your head around. In the US alone, Amazon delivers about 1.6 million packages. And that's not, over a month or a year, that's every single day. To handle that kind of volume, you need a massive workforce, and you need a totally new way of doing things.
So how in the world did Amazon build a system to handle all that? Well, they didn't follow the old playbook. They wrote a new one, and that brings us to the real heart of what we're talking about today.
Okay, so let's break down the two main ways this whole system works, because how that package lands on your porch depends entirely on which one of these paths it took to get there.
On one hand, you've got the classic UPS model. It's what you'd probably expect. Drivers work directly for UPS, they're employees of the company, and they're part of a union. But on the other side, you've got the Amazon model, which relies on hundreds of subcontractors. They call them delivery service partners, or DSPs. It's a system that researchers have a name for, a fissured workplace. And this term is really key to understanding everything. A fissured workplace is basically designed to create distance between a huge company, like Amazon, and the people doing the frontline work. So those drivers you see in the Amazon-branded vans wearing Amazon vests, they don't actually work for Amazon. They work for one of hundreds of small, independent logistics companies. It's a model that lets Amazon scale up like crazy, fast, without taking on the direct legal responsibilities of being an employer. Okay, so that's the high-level business stuff. But what does it actually feel like for the person driving the van? Let's shift from the corporate org chart to the day-to-day reality for these workers.
All right, so let's look at the numbers. Research from the Shift project gives us a pretty clear picture when we compare wages. And just at a glance, you can see some really big gaps between the big three delivery companies, especially when you look at the drivers.
And when you zero in on just the drivers, wow, the difference is just stark. The average hourly wage for an Amazon driver comes in around $19 an hour. For a unionized UPS driver, it's almost double that, at $35 an hour.
And look, this isn't just about numbers on a chart. You see it reflected in what the drivers themselves are saying. This quote here is from an online review for one of those Amazon DSP partners, and it's a feeling you find over and over again online. It really connects the data to the human side of the job. But it's not even just about the starting pay. It's about where you go from there. With UPS, you can see a clear career path. Your wages go up a lot the longer you stay. It's treated like a long-term profession. For Amazon drivers, though, the data shows that wages stay almost completely flat, so there's really no financial reward for sticking around. And what happens when there's no incentive to stay? Well, you get this. A staggering 46%, almost half, of Amazon's drivers have been on the job for less than a year. It points to a massive turnover rate. Now compare that to UPS, where just 2% of drivers are in their first year. It's a totally different world. Okay, another huge difference here is the tech, specifically how much you're being monitored. This data shows that whether you're working directly for Amazon in a warehouse or you're a subcontracted driver, you are experiencing some of the highest levels of digital surveillance and speed tracking in the entire industry.
And this quote from an Amazon worker, man, it really paints a picture of what that feels like on the ground. It's this environment of constant second-by-second digital oversight. Every single thing you do is being tracked, timed, and measured.
Now, to be fair, Amazon has definitely responded to some of this criticism. They've invested a lot of money into their workforce. The company points to its own pay calculations, which they say average over $23 an hour, and they offer things like health plans, a 401k, and even tuition programs. But, and this is a really important but, access to these benefits can be different depending on where you are, because they're often administered through those hundreds of independent DSP companies, not directly by Amazon itself.
So what happens when you have these two completely different models competing head-to-head across the country? Because this isn't just about two companies anymore. This is really about the future of a huge piece of our economy.
So really it boils down to this. We have one industry with two totally different ideas about the future. One is that traditional unionized model that for a long time was a solid path to a middle-class life. The other is this newer, much more flexible but Fissured model that's all about speed, scale, and efficiency.
And that leaves us with a really big question. The data is pretty clear. Amazon's model is growing, and it's growing fast. As this becomes the main way we get everything, what does that actually mean for the quality of jobs? Not just for delivery drivers, but for the entire service economy. The answer to that question is going to shape the lives of millions of people for years to come.